Hello.
Hello. Actually, I don't know. It said recording in progress, but it's different.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, we're recording. Something
Well,
happened.
something happened. Something happening here. That's
Actually,
a
it is
song
What
that was.
it
recording.
is
Okay, I gotta go.
technically.
Welcome to
Well, it says recording, so I'm going to
welcome to
assume. And
Tush Twins.
right, Tush twins.
Twins.
Tush
Heard on
twins.
Yeah, let
malcolmpresents.com.
me just shut my door.
And she's and one of our twins are leaving.
She's shutting the door.
She's
Hold
Hold
shutting
the
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 door.
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 Hold the
Hold the
door. Hold
So
the
the
door.
door.
Hold
doors
the
don't come
door.
in.
Hold
Anyway,
the.
we're heard on malcolmpresents.com,
Yeah.
a new streaming network. It's not new, it's about a year or two old, but it's a streaming network heard
But it's
around
a
the
year or two. I want to know exactly.
He
I,
doesn't know. He keeps
I
changing it to protect the innocent.
right. I
So
think it's
Uh-oh.
16 months, 16, no, 16 months, no, 1 year, 16 months. No, forget about it.
doesn't
Forget
matter.
about
Fuck.
it.
Forget
Hey,
about it.
forget about us Brooklynites. Forget about
Forget
Forget
it.
about it.
about it.
It's the Brooklyn comes out very quickly in
And
us.
anyway, let's get
We're
to our
all.
topic because we never discuss anything.
Yeah,
We
well,
never talk
of
to our
course.
topic.
Well, I wanted to just do the beginning of this because we usually have names of ladies in pairs who do terrific things. You know,
Who,
Lucy and
who,
Ethel, Laverne and Shirley.
who have heard, all passed
You know,
away aside from
Be-
Lily and Jane.
no, Lily and Jane, Betty and Wilma, they're still around in cartoon
Betty
form.
Oh, they'll
Wilma,
be
they're
around
all the
forever.
talkers,
They
but they're
didn't know
still around.
they'll live forever. But Jane and Lily, Grace and Frankie, my heroes in just
Yeah.
so many ways. I mean,
Well, I just saw a movie called Moving On, which was with them. First time I
yeah,
saw it.
how was it?
It was okay. There were good parts about it, and then silly parts of some of it.
Yeah, well, it's amazing because they're both in their like early 80s. I think Jane is
Yeah,
83-ish.
and I think Jane is in the mid 80s. I think Jane
And
is
I
younger.
think Jane is mid 80s and Lily is, in early 80s. And that whole
They
cast
look
is in.
fabulous.
I, we got to look that way when we're their age, got a little
I
ways.
plan on it.
Yeah, that's right. Again, just don't put my head up, Futurama. I think about that a lot, with the talking heads. And then when I hear the talking heads, I think about it. But yeah, just those two women are incredible. And Jane is very like I know her. It's Jane, my friend Jane.
Well, yeah. Well,
She,
she's been around for such a long time.
yeah, she's quite a character and has gotten herself into wee bits of trouble in the past on the protest stage,
Right, but yeah,
talking.
she's a perfect one to start speaking
But
about protests or
but
marches.
but she is very environmental. She knows that there's no planet B and that we are like screwed if we don't start doing something. And so she worked with Fridays for Future, Greta Thunberg. She works with some organizations, and she would go on Fridays to Washington D.C. and literally get herself arrested, civil disobedience, almost every time she protested. And she would bring friends along. She would bring Lily Tomlin, and she would get arrested. She would bring Sam Waterston.
Worston, he
Oh,
got
he
arrested.
got arrested. We had our buddy Martin Sheen. He was president for many years on West Wing. He got arrested. And other folks who know her. So it's she, went to the point of, okay, lock me up. I dare you. We got to get the word out. Right. Put on the cuffs.
Yeah, but that's the difference of then and now. Yeah, what was peaceful resistance is if I'm sitting in, I started, back in my days in the late 60s in
Mhm.
colleges, and the students would do sit-ins, protesting the war. But when the cops came, they would go arrest me. They wouldn't resist. They wouldn't fight.
Yeah.
Today,
Right now.
now they fight.
Well, not everyone
Most,
fights. I
not
mean,
everyone
certainly Jane
does.
Fonda didn't fight,
No. In
but
those days they didn't, but I'm saying now there's a lot of, especially some of the movements where they're doing things illegally,
yeah,
and they can
well,
be arrested, and then they sort of resist. Like the
right.
Black Lives Matters.
So somebody, one of the guys, because they disrupted the U.S. tennis open this year. They had,
Yes.
I don't know what organization it was. It was one of the eco groups, one of the, everything has a fringe side. There's the fringe on the right, there's a fringe on the left.
On the left.
But on the right, they're going to bring AK-47s and AR-15s. On the left, the guy glued his feet to the stadium concrete by the seat. Therein lies your difference.
His barefoot.
They disrupted, but they weren't dangerous. They weren't violent. They didn't use violence. I'm not saying that,
He's got arrested for having a glue gun.
right, right, exactly. He has a
Yeah,
glue gun, and the other guy has an
but that's not
AR-15.
necessarily all true. There are a lot of these ultra left groups who are
There are a lot
violent.
of ultra lefts
There's,
that
and there's
do violence. Yes,
there's
there
a
are.
lot of
They're
ultra right.
both-
Right. So it's not
Yeah.
The
stuck to one.
problem
left.
is the majority of those protesting are peaceful. But what happens is these extremists go in and agitate. They agitate the crowd, they agitate, and then the police, they cause problems. So the question is, you should have a right to peaceful demonstration. We peacefully demonstrated. We were kids. We shouldn't have been there. Our parents would have knocked
No,
us
my
silly.
mother knew. My parents knew we
I
were
don't
at the
think I told my
protest.
mom that I was protesting.
My parents
At least in
knew.
Coney Island.
Yeah,
Well,
what
Coney
was it?
Island, that one I didn't tell. But the
Mhm.
ones we went to in the city or with Lincoln High School, we closed the school down for moratorium day when
Mhm.
we marched down up Ocean Parkway. And all
Right.
those, my parents knew I went
Yeah,
to
so did my
protest.
mom. She wasn't happy
Yeah.
because
My
of course your
parents were
parents.
for it.
Yeah, they're for it, but now today you're worried if
Today,
some
now.
crackpot's going to
Yeah,
come in with a machine, with
Okay.
an automatic weapon and shoot you down.
There's a
That's
difference.
the big difference,
There's a
right?
difference between
Well,
yesterday when we
what was
protested.
it? Was it the '68 convention, Republican convention in Chicago?
Yes.
It was
Yeah,
a
the Chicago
Democratic
7.
convention, actually.
It's a Democrat.
Mhm.
And yes, they protested there too. The
where Daley unleashed his police force.
Yeah, that
They
happened.
didn't shoot, but there were a lot of cracked heads.
Well, look at Kent State. They murdered 4 students.
Boy dead in Ohio.
Oh,
Ohio.
that song was written right after they recorded it in that week, and they had it out 2 weeks later. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look at the civil rights demonstrations of the late '50s with Martin Luther King with trying to
John Lewis. They go across John Lewis.
yeah.
Yes.
Now they're trying to get the voting bill after his name. He was the keynote speaker at my son's law school graduation. You were there, Paul.
Yeah, where they unleash the dogs.
I mean, he had his head cracked open on the bridge. He is lucky he was living. There
are so many people that died because the extreme right hung them up.
Yeah, hang them
high.
Yep. So, I mean, this country has a crazy history, and a lot of countries do. I mean, when I went to Scotland and we went to Edinburgh Castle, and they're talking about the fighting from this 100 years to that 100 years, the Brits, the this, the that. I mean, they were always killing each other. It's like, look what's going on. Wars don't go away. Wars don't end. There's all sorts of stuff going on now.
Recently,
what's going on in Israel?
Yeah, well, now Israel's considered an insecure state.
Yes, it is. They're telling people do not travel. There's a travel thing. Do not go to
It's
Israel.
on the State Department. Don't go.
Yeah, I checked.
Because it's turning to an authoritarian state.
Yeah.
Okay. You would think, how did this possibly happen? Anyway,
now
we're getting a little too far. Yeah,
well. No, but I'm talking about there's a protest.
Yeah.
But those aren't peaceful protests anymore.
But it's Israelis are protesting.
Yes,
There was a
protesting their
lot of
absolutely.
they're protesting their own government.
correct because
Yes.
That
they want to take
Netanyahu is trying,
away
the
yeah
Supreme Court,
the
he's trying to
judicial
make
rights. Yes, right.
he's trying to make the executive, the really the key power.
Right,
It's
and
dictatorship.
well, the Heritage Foundation 2025 project wants to do the same thing here in the US,
Yeah.
which is
But
what we
now,
didn't get to talk about. But anyway, we were trying
actually,
to
it's
talk about, go ahead.
no,
Protests.
actually, it's happening the same thing actually in El Salvador in a good way, because the president of El Salvador is suspending a lot of the civil rights, and he's arresting people without really having a trial. But
Yeah.
he's arresting a lot of the gangbangers. I think it's a sort of like 90% of the people or not 90% of the people, most of the people he's arresting are gang members. But the problem is he catches a lot of people who aren't gang members, and their civil rights are being denied.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, the people in the cities like him. I think he has like 80-90% approval because
Wow.
the gang activity is way down.
Well,
So that could be like a benevolent dictator.
Well, a benevolent dictator, that's an oxymoron. You know
No,
what
no,
that is.
that's what I
Yeah.
believe in, benevolent dictators. Or
You
what
know.
was it? If kings can't become philosophers, philosophers should become kings.
Well, at this
Yeah.
point, we're leaning like very much from the 30s. There's a very huge around the globe authoritarian people are trying to take over, including right here in the United States.
But we need
Right
a good
here.
we need a good authoritarian that could straighten this country. But the problem is everybody that comes in is sort of sort of like
Power goes to their head.
right.
That's
It's supposed
unfortunately
to be
goes
a
to their head.
democracy.
Democracy.
Isn't that word something that's important now?
Well, it's not a strict democracy, it's a representative democracy, because there are things built into our constitution that makes
Constitution?
yeah,
Oh, that's such a
because
thing?
it's not a
I didn't know we still had one.
it's
Do
not,
we still have a constitution?
but
Okay.
it's not a rule by majority. If the majority takes the rights of other people, and then the law becomes unconstitutional, and that protects the minority. That's the
We
beautiful
have
thing about our country.
the founders had that there would be 2 senators from each state and then Congress people based on, population. But what's happened now is the states, of course, the country expanded, to California. And we have all these states with huge amount of land and hardly any population with 2 senators from each of those states. When you have millions and millions on the coasts and in the middle or in the upper northwest, middle northwest, you have states that barely have 1 million people.
I know.
And so that's what's making the decision. So that's not fair either. Because you're taking away, hey, well, it's too bad you live in California, New York. There's a lot of people there. That's your thing.
Right.
I mean, but those people's rights are being diminished by not having fair,
Representation. Yeah.
Because the senator from North Dakota has the same power as the senator from California or New York.
Exactly.
And he represents his wife, his 2 sons, and his in-laws.
Well, there's not as many people, and to me that has to be addressed, and it's not. What we're going to do about that? I don't know. You're saying it's a representative democracy, but really it isn't. So, and then if you want to do it by majority, Hillary Clinton should be president. She won the most votes in 2016.
2016.
Yeah. So she should have been
she
president.
should have been president.
Well,
and think about what would it be now if she were president?
Well, what would it have been if Al Gore was elected? I mean, he was decided by the
Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court in Florida.
Yeah, no, the Supreme Court of the United States.
No, but I mean the Supreme Court
was
That's called a dangling Chad.
Right, right. We had a lot.
Help
We had a lot
me.
because Chad was dangling, and he
He
dangled
was
us.
there.
I mean, what if our,
Chad's dingle dangle,
right.
and that's what happened. But and then back in the day, you'd have the press, give you information. You had the networks covering things, but today you have the 24/7 news cycle. You have
Yeah.
you have different, different
You have different news
streaming things, different
outlets.
news outlets.
The
We have
news outlets are really stupid because
and
one
social
will show
media.
their side
It
all the way to the right and saying, and then all the ones all the way to the left are saying, and there's nothing in the middle where people are normal.
say
Well,
that's right.
they
There's
know,
no
Who's
normalcy anymore.
normal? No, it's
well,
There's
just
they
no
know,
normalcy.
as we said, there's no longer news outlets. They're basically uh op-ed type of things that they give
Yeah,
their opinion. You can tell, number one, by the stories they cover.
yeah.
And number two, you can tell by the opening remarks. I mean, when someone says, "And our president," President Biden, stood by, dumbfounded or didn't know where he was walking. You know what the story is going to be.
Yeah.
They give editorial comments about the person.
yeah. Well,
They
It's
don't
like
do the news.
Trump speaking.
right. It doesn't make.
Ugh.
It's like they have all the different factions, and everyone wants to grab 5 minutes of the news. Except it's not even that anymore. I think it's been lowered to 30 seconds to 2 minutes because that's what's
Mhm.
on the social media now. That's what we've dumbed down so much that we're
Yeah.
looking for 30 seconds to 2 minutes of what someone's gonna say.
Yeah, it's a
And
30-second sound bites.
yeah,
I mean,
Then it's
basically,
over. That's it. You hear,
right.
but wait, I want more. I need more. I need to hear more about this.
And then even, so then you go on social media and you'll get 280 characters. It'll be, this big. So, I mean, where do you go? What do you do? How do you, especially the young, the youth came out in numbers at the climate march, which was
Hmm.
recently. There
Which is
were
good.
almost 75,000, between 50 and 75,000 people marched in New York City. I'll repeat that. 50,000 to 70,000, 75,000 people marched in New York City from the West Side to the United Nations, stating that you need to do something about climate change. We can't use fossil fuels as killing and burning the planet.
Yes.
Young people came out in droves and droves. I mean, it's their world that's going to be left a disaster if this isn't, taken up. And
It's not going to
I
be our mess. It's going to be their
no,
mess. And I would
well, we're
hate
not
to
going.
see
Well,
that
I don't know
happen
about you.
too.
I don't think I'm not.
I won't be
I'm gonna be
around.
around.
sure you
I may
will.
not. I may not be aware of what's happening.
Well,
But I
oh,
mean, to me,
there's a fire. Where? No,
to me, it
Up your
sounds so.
ass.
I was just
It's
gonna say that.
it sounds so. It sounds so.
Oh
This
man,
is, guys.
that was
This is
bad.
serious. This is serious.
We're
Okay.
supposed to be the Tush twins. We have to get out of our
Oh,
serious mode,
okay.
but go ahead.
But I mean, it's, to me, it seems so simplistic. If like 80-90% of the scientists, or let's say 80% or even 75%, say that a major problem with the weather change is fossil fuel.
It's human caused fossil fuel. Yeah.
Right. So
But
it
they
seems
don't.
logical we should cut back on fossil fuel
Right.
and go into alternative ways of energy. But
We
conversely, as we
won't.
talked about that on the show, Many Shades, the
Yeah.
problem
Yeah.
is when we cut back on fossil fuel, the fossil fuel goes up, the price.
Right.
I was riding this morning with my wife, and we went to get gas. It was $6.69 a gallon. The last time I think I got gas was like 4 and change.
You
Because I
forgot
don't
one
drive a car
other.
now, she
You
drives.
forgot one other dangling participle. We talked about the Chads, but
Hmm.
the political side of it, Malcolm, right?
Well,
The political side is the raising of gas prices makes the voting population pissed off. they're going to be pissed off at the person who's in office right now
Right.
because
And they're
they
doing it on
didn't do
purpose.
anything. Okay. So this is all to get, Biden, not only his age, but,
For the
anything else.
2024 election.
If you look at his record, if you look at the infrastructure bill, if you look at the Inflation Reduction Act, if you look at all the points of it, which is green jobs, green energy, renewables, what those things there's no president since FDR that put a plan into effect like Biden, and he gets crushed no matter what he does. And the news doesn't bring it out. The news only brings out the Cheeto, let's cover Cheeto. And you know who Cheeto is. And because the orange dust is all over. And it's literally it's a battle every minute. It's a battle.
100%.
So what
But
do you
as
do?
we were saying about, we were protesting when we were younger.
Right,
We used to go to the village.
right.
We first would go to Giorgio's and have our pasta with meat sauce.
Yes. That was a big deal, right?
It was $3
And then
back
we had to
then.
look decent, and then we get to Washington Square Park and we turn into something else. The two chicks from Brooklyn who think that they're protesting, hey, hippie world, here we are. And I brought my guitar. We would sing under the arch.
Bongos.
And bongos and
And I wore a derby with
right.
Mitchell's derby.
Right, Mitchell's Derby. You were the Derby. Yes, you did. Yeah, I don't know where that is now. It's somewhere around. Probably.
I wish I could find it because I
probably in
would
a
take
warehouse
it.
in Missoula, Montana. I have no idea. But anyway, Mitch, where's your hat?
Yeah, we're
But-
talking.
It's mine.
Yeah, back. The first I really remember protests. I went to CCNY, which was a very, that was sort of like the Berkeley of
Right.
the East. They were very liberal.
Yes.
I remember the first year that I went there, I think that's 61. They were protesting the war in Vietnam.
That's what we did.
Nobody knew there was a war in Vietnam. In fact, nobody really knew it
that
until
was
about
early. That was early because
Yeah,
we were doing it
65.
69, 70.
67. We started in
Yeah, but in
67.
65, that's when we expanded the war,
That's-
when we had the invasion. What was it, Bay of Tonkin? Where
Yes.
was it Tonkin?
The
I'm
Gulf
not
of
sure.
Tonkin. The
The
Gulf
of Tonkin. But anyway, where
Right.
the US came in because they say they bombed our ships.
Right.
But anyway, that's the first protest I remember. Then, like in the late 60s, I was living in the village. Then we were doing Stonewall.
Right.
Remember
Yes.
Stonewall? Because there was
Yes,
a bar.
I do.
There was a bar
I
in the
used to hang
village.
That
out
was
there with my
huge.
friend
That-
Michael.
Well,
Yeah,
I never hung
Stonewall
out there.
Inn or something. Yeah.
But I
Stonewall.
lived about 2 blocks away. I never knew it was a gay bar. But the thing was, it was a gay bar, and in those days, the police would come into the gay bars, and because you were gay, they could arrest you.
Right. At that point, yes,
And
that's true.
that's where there was a major protest.
Right. We protested, but there was also music was very attached to the
Very
message.
attached to our protest.
There was the protest and anti-war movement,
Yeah.
the rock and the folk people, everyone. There were songs.
We're
And,
right. Say
1, 2,
Bob
3.
Dylan.
What are we fighting for? Hey, don't give a damn. Next
Yeah.
up, and even songs like "Mercy Me," which was one of the first songs, which is Marvin Gaye, basically
Yeah,
talking
that was
about
one of the.
he was talking about
yes.
the environment. He was also talking about the environmental movement in that song, and it's just I don't know. It's just to me,
I
there's a
grew
lot
up with
missing
Bob,
today with that.
with Bob Dylan, with Pete Seeger. Well, Pete Seeger was already an established folk singer, and
Well,
him
I'm a
and Woody
Pete.
Guthrie.
in
I'm
the
a very
wind.
Pete Seeger fanatic. I've seen
And him
about
and Woody
20 of his
Guthrie.
concerts.
Woody
I
Guthrie,
knew
absolutely.
Arlo Guthrie's father. I
Yeah.
would
Right.
see Woody Guthrie, Arlo Guthrie, and Pete Seeger in concert at least 20, 30 times. I can't remember how many
I
times.
used to see Pete Seeger in concert all the time because he was banned for a while on TV.
Yes, he
Well,
was.
he was
Protest movement.
blacklisted.
Yes,
And
he
you know who
was.
put him who put him on? The first
Who?
network show after?
Ed Sullivan?
No, no, I'm forgetting the Smothers Brothers.
Oh, well,
Of
they were
course,
talk
yeah.
about a duo that
Pro-
that kicked some butt
Yeah,
and took numbers and did, they would CBS would go, don't do that.
yeah, yeah.
And then they would Tom and Dick would look at each other, don't do that.
That's
And
what they
then they
did.
would they
And
would
they
go on
did.
the air, they would go on the air and they would say, we were told not to do this. It's like, and then they just do it anyway. It was
That was a great show. And they were canceled because of
because
their
they
protesting of the war.
of the protests and the things that they weren't supposed to do on the air that they did anyway. And so to me, they were heroes and commentary, even from shows like Laugh-In, every time, comedy brings out, we'll
No,
focus on stuff like this and be satirical.
yeah.
And you
they
know what? The first song for a protest song that was written for the Vietnam War was Eve of Destruction.
was that the first one?
That was the
Really?
first one.
As I would say, very interesting.
Very interesting.
But stupid.
Yeah, but there's just so much that people, I mean, even Joni Mitchell, I mean, Big Yellow Taxi was an environmental song.
Well, a big
Yeah.
one that we've forgotten that at that time for folk music was Joan Baez.
Mm-hmm.
I love Joan Baez. Her voice is like magical, but her
Joan Baez
vocals.
and Judy Collins.
Right. I saw Judy Collins at the Burns Film Center near me, and Joan Baez is going to be there in October, and I'm trying to see if I can get 2 tickets to that, to see her. There's a movie, a documentary, and then she's going to perform.
But I just wonder how come they get to be so old, and I'm not that old.
That's right. You look like a baby.
Yes, that's a young man. But hold it, guys. We're so
beta.
serious. We're so serious and everything, and about protesting. So, Maxine, tell me about your gray shoes.
Actually, I'm wearing gray sneakers. So,
Ooh, let's see.
So wait, let me take them off. I'll show you.
Yeah, guys.
How long did we go shopping for gray shoes? Well,
Too
now
long.
this is gray. They're gray. They're New Balance, and they're gray.
Yay.
So here's my gray shoes. 50, 60 years later, whatever. I don't know. So yes, and now I can pound on the table. But yeah,
Khrushchev.
I was just gonna
Khrushchev.
say that. I was just gonna say Khrushchev.
Khrushchev.
Yeah, we lived through some pretty crazy, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the war, 6-day war. I mean,
the 6-day war. We lived through the Yom Kippur War, with the anniversary is coming up this week.
Right. So, but I mean, and a lot of different things. I mean, assassinations of JFK and Martin Luther King and RFK, and then we see all the crap. You bring it to now. Well, we had a pandemic, bad, really bad. But after all we've been through as a country, you wouldn't think we'd have to worry about the country reverting to an authoritarian state. And unfortunately, they're not gonna pass a budget. They're gonna let it default because of this fringe group again. The fringe.
We have, I think, 10 days to pass the budget.
30th.
No closer than we are.
We have 10 days, and they're gonna bring it down. They're gonna, because why? How much? My mom had an expression. How much can you eat? Right?
How much can you?
How much can
money
you
do you
eat?
need?
So exactly. How much money do you need? And what's even more insane is the people following this insanity are kind of just getting paycheck to paycheck for the most part. So if Social Security and Medicare go away, then what?
They're screwed. And they're going to blame us, but it's not. They're going to blame the president now, which
right, exactly.
It's not his fault, but the new people already took away most of our rights as a woman.
Right. The Supreme Court, and now all the state houses are passing abortion restrictions.
But the Republicans did a smart thing. They concentrated on local governments and got control of the local
the state
states.
houses. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because
And this didn't just happen. This has been going on 30 years.
On
or
for a
yeah,
more.
while.
because they also then could gerrymander the districts.
Yeah. So,
And,
but
That's
and
against the
anyway,
law.
how did we get so serious on this show? We're
But-
supposed to be
but
talking about Tushes.
well,
It's called the Tush twins.
well,
I guess
Tush is a very serious matter.
that's right. Right.
I mean,
But
people are judged on how big their tush is or how flat it is.
are they?
Everybody
It's-
makes comments about that.
It's the twerking.
It's a
I
twerking.
twerk.
Did you twerk?
I
Did you
have a
twerk?
tiny tush.
But
I twerk.
anyway, guys, because
We're
of
leaving with the line that she says, I have a tiny tush.
you have a tiny tush. But
Tiny
say,
tush.
guys, it's time to say goodbye because
All
also
right.
I don't know, for some reason my Zoom account is back to the minimum. I
All
haven't.
right. Well, you
'Cause I
gotta
just see
go.
the
Well, I
numbers
want to
that-
just wish everyone an easy
Yeah.
fast.
Those who
Celebrate
those who
Yom
celebrate those
Kippur,
who have it's easy fast
follow an easy fast,
and be sealed in the
Happy
book
New-
of be sealed in the book of life.
Well, now,
and a
what's it?
Happy New
Is
Year.
it 5783 or 5784?
5784.
84. Okay.
5784.
57.
Tell the
to
people
say
what she
that-
wore. She
For
wore
all
it.
those
No.
people who don't understand that, Lashana Tova.
Lashana
Lashana
Tova.
Taba.
But you said Lashana Tova.
Lashana.
That's a
Shayna.
little girl.
It's like
It's
a
like
Shayna
Shayna.
Maidel.
It's like Shana Punim.
It's
Like Shayna Punham.
Is it Shana?
Anyway, it's
Lashana.
Lashana Tova. It's pronounced
Tova.
Lashana.
Tiki Tevu.
Tikateva. Tikatavu.
Tiki Teva.
Tikatavi.
Anyway,
Tiki
guys, enough of this
Ciao,
foolishness.
man.
I gotta go.
Ciao.
I'll see you next year.
Catch you next time.
Bye.
right.
Adios, everyone.
Adios, muchachos. Mwah.